Fighters were paid and history was made. Just 24 hours on UFC. My chair just fell. 24 hours ago, just at UFC 199. We're going to talk all about it and pay tribute to a combat sports legend. Coming right up.
You're tuning into the destination for TV superfan discussion, AfterBuzz TV. And now, let the buzz begin.
One of the best, right there.
The greatest.
Ali's theme, Ali, Bomaye. And by the way, it wasn't your chair that fell, it was also your joke that fell.
Well, that's not the joke. That's not the. What was the joke?
That wasn't the joke that you had lined up?
No, but what do you think was a joke?
Huh?
What part of it was a joke?
I thought you were trying to be coy and funny.
How?
It was.
I agree. It's like I thought you were just opening the show, gonna have a good show, and there we are.
Either way, we're gonna add that intro to the blooper reel.
Yeah.
I was like, wait, I'm shrinking. But anyways, we are here on AfterBuzz TV. Gonna be covering UFC 199. Just happened 24 hours ago, just right from the block. Mm-hmm. Right down the block.
I'm still pumped up from being there. It was
Inglewood.
awesome.
It's gonna be fun to talk about because I watched it from home, but you guys were actually there at the Forum. Mm-hmm. Watching UFC 199 live.
Yeah.
So we're going to talk all about it. There's going to be a lot to talk about. But first things first, let's introduce yourselves first. Of course, we have Jay Chan, Gabriel Gonzalez. But, where can people find you on social media?
I am all over the internet at JTan716. The Twitter, the Facebook, the Instagram. I'm on Snapchat, but really only just to see boobs. I'll be honest with you.
How's that working out for you?
Not very well. Not much. All my male friends keep adding me, and I'm like, I don't need this.
Clearly, you're following the wrong people. You can find me on Twitter anytime at Double G on TV.
I am George Hermoza. You can follow me on Facebook, Twitter, Twitch. I just got a Twitch account. So if you guys want to watch me play UFC 2, and I suck at it.
Are you good?
I suck at it. I mean, but who wants to watch a bunch of winners? Let's watch a bunch of losers.
Mighty Mouse and Shayna Baszler have pretty big Twitch followings, I believe.
I know Mighty Mouse does.
Yeah.
But yeah, Twitch.
You should challenge the Mouse.
We'll see.
Yeah.
He's big on the League of Legends kind of games.
Oh, okay.
I'm not big on those.
Because that's his break time away from the cage.
Pretty
You're
much.
trying to get in the cage.
But yeah, G Hermoza, GHERMOZA. You can follow me on that. You can buy stuff from my eBay page. I'm selling a lot of cool sports stuff, a lot of pro wrestling stuff as well. So that's where you can find us. I'm excited to talk about this UFC 199. But first things first. Friday night, legend, not just a legend in combat sports, but just legend in all sports. Muhammad Ali, Cassius Clay,
a cultural icon, worldwide. But yeah, it goes beyond sports. But the world lost a great figure Friday night.
I mean, definitely, the word influential would be an understatement for what he's done. Not only for, like I said, for combat sports. You look at lists like ESPN or Fox Sports or whoever has lists. They don't really talk about Ali being the number one combat sports fighter. They think that he's the number one athlete ever. Him, Jordan, Gretzky, those are those three are always revolving around each other. And I mean, Gabriel, I know you're a little bit younger than us. I know you're still in your 20s, but that just goes to show just the impact that Ali had, because he just has it not only on the 30-year-olds and the 40-year-olds, but also on the 20-year-olds. Talk about what he's what you saw Ali do, and in whether it's in movies or history or.
No, well, definitely. They alluded to that. I was at home when I got the news, and I turned it to ESPN, and they really did talk about it. For a lot of people my age, Ali, the boxer, is only a guy on YouTube. There's Will Smith in the movie, but the true to life Ali, I can only go on the internet, and I already know what's gonna happen when he fights Joe Frazier, George Foreman. But what I really always admire about him, that confidence. He always had that confidence that I think everyone wishes they had in themselves at one point or another. And for as great as he was in the ring, he was probably an even better humanitarian and influential. The fact that I can't remember him doesn't mean that I don't understand how great he was. And, I think that's just a big thing. And he was truly the greatest. And, I don't know him, but I'm still going to miss him. I think that's the only way I could really put it.
That's a huge part, I think, of Ali and his legacy. The fact that he was his reputation, his legacy transcends generations. There's obviously like Gigi here, many people that didn't really know Ali have read about it, read about him and heard about him, maybe seen some matches, but the fact that his legacy goes so far back, and the things that he did at the time. I mean, I can only imagine what it was like to follow Ali in his heyday when he was fighting, and his conversion to Islam, his very outspokenness, if that's even a word, his outspoken stance on things like the Vietnam War, politics, race in America, really is just. I don't know that you see people like that anymore. I mean, the closest that we get is a far distant second. Somebody like, I mean, the biggest names that we're talking about, Ronda, Floyd Mayweather, Conor McGregor, they're not taking the stances about social issues and politics and things going on, current events that Ali did, and that's a huge thing that is going to. It's going to stand the test of time in terms of being a bar to which other athletes, celebrities, actors, actors, singers, whatever. Just a couple months ago, we were celebrating Prince and David Bowie and their loss. Ali, I think, outshadows that because of what he did throughout the world. He was the guy that owned the world stage.
The stage, yes. And, I think to add to that, I've heard it said, the Beatles, how they were this phenomenon. And if you try to have the Beatles today, you can't, just because the world is so much bigger and the way we access that. So to have the same kind of impact that the Beatles did, regardless of it's a band or an artist, and it's the same thing with, I think, Ali culturally. The way the world works, it's hard to have another figure quite like that in today's day and age, the way we communicate with technology and everything else that's happened since Ali did everything that he did. So I think that's part of it, and I think we all understand, he was an ambassador for peace at a time when the world was very different, and he's helped influence the world the way it is today as far as being an ambassador for peace.
I mean, especially in the fight game itself. I mean, you look at how many guys, obviously in boxing as well, the Floyd Mayweather, but also in MMA, the Chael Sonnen, the Conor McGregor, they all have something in common. The trash talking. And it's not even just about like talking trash to your opponent. It's about making a name for yourself, being able to stand out, because obviously this is a business. You have to sell tickets, you have to sell pay-per-views, you have to sell merchandise, you have to sell revenue. Not so much merchandise, but like I said, you have to sell yourself. Right. And a lot of people, like I said, they all credit Muhammad Ali.
True.
Yeah.
Dana White actually alluded to that the night before. They're like, you know what? At the time, people were kind of very boring in boxing back in the day. Then Ali came in and he was doing his thing, and it changed the game. And I don't know if they showed it on the pay-per-view at home, but I know in the arena there were several tributes to Ali throughout the night, and I thought that was pretty cool.
They began the pay-per-view with a Muhammad Ali tribute. Yeah. As well as I think the early prelims as well, and obviously a lot of memoriams during the show. So yeah, you definitely saw it, watching it at home. I know myself and Jay were at an RFA show that we were just promoting a few weeks ago, and literally in the middle of the show, we both got texts, we both got tweets. The person next to it, the person in front of us, turning around. Oh my God, did you know?
I think
Ali
it was
just
the
passed
fourth
away.
round of the main event, right?
Oh.
Yeah, just about, yeah.
Yeah, it was towards the end of the main event.
And you can just kind of tell, like, people were still watching the show, and to be honest with you, kudos to the guys that fought in RFA, but the main event was a little lackluster in some ways, let's be real. But so you kind of saw a lot of people's attention and turn to the news that they just saw, on their phones or their friend next to them, and the somber, because this guy did have such a good influence. The keyword is good influence on the world, and especially the fight game.
Yeah. Very funny and strange too. I mean, when you talk about where were you when you hear these news headlines, and of course there's, like I said, there's Prince, David Bowie, Michael Jackson, who else? When Reagan was shot, for some of us older cats rather, or maybe Lady Diana, Princess Diana. But at that moment when Ali. When Twitter blew up and it was announced that Ali had died, they ended the match. It was the main event. There was one more match to go of the night. Actually, it's called the Swing Bout. It was a dark match, so it was untelevised. And before that, the ring announcer actually got in the cage and announced Ali's death, and they, on the spot, did a 10-bell salute to Ali. Now, what was even more fascinating is at that time, of course, the RFA is broadcast on Access TV, which does a live broadcast with whatever event that is. In this case, obviously RFA at that moment. But then they pitch it immediately live to Inside MMA, which is shot in downtown LA. And as the 10-bell salute was going on, there was a 10-bell salute and then quite a long pause, silence for his memory. But the only thing that you could hear there, which was going on, and I think fairly so, was Michael Chiavallo and Pat Miletich interview. Oh no, was it those guys or is it Ron Kroc?
That I'm not.
I think it might have been Ron Kroc actually interviewing Judo Gene LaBelle, who of course was a contemporary of Ali's. They go far back. Gene LaBelle refereed Ali versus Antonio Inoki, a very strange mixed boxer versus wrestler match that happened in 1976. And side note, we'll be talking about that next week, or in 2 weeks rather, with Josh Gross, who's the author that wrote a book which is about to be released, whether timely or untimely, unfortunately, about that match. But that was the one interview you could hear. It was the one sound you could hear in the whole arena. Everyone else was silent. And of course, it being an interview discussing Ali's legacy. I think a lot of people understood it, but it was quite a surreal moment. Again, of where were you when, and that in this world now with this technology, we're able to do a 10-bell salute for one of the greatest that ever lived, right at that moment at a fight event. So it's a nice. It was a nice tribute, and it was great that it could happen so spontaneously like that.
Yeah, so it kind of bled into what happened yesterday, UFC 189. Like I said, from Los Angeles, my hometown. I know a lot of guys are from out of state or even out of the city, but we all live here now. It's easy to get to. You guys with the Forum. Their first show at the Forum, I want to say ever, because they're usually at the Staples Center or sometimes even go down to Anaheim. The
first one at the new Forum, of course. I think it's technically might be the third or fourth MMA event to happen at the Forum. 2 events I know happened at the old one before it went through renovations. The first one, believe it or not, was a show that I worked on, the WFA King of the Streets, which was July 2006. I want to say the 28th, but I'm not quite sure. That one was the very first one that happened at the Forum, and the IFL later came back and did a show there as well. I don't know if there's been others since then, but if so, it would have been in the older Forum, not the new renovated one, which is really gorgeous, by the way, guys. I couldn't believe it. Just walking around between 100 and 200 level, they carpeted the place. Did you notice that?
I did, but I'm not gonna lie, I was a little distracted. The lines at the Forum for drinks and bathrooms, it is a beautiful arena for fights. And what I like about it, and I know boxing's taking advantage of it, it's much smaller than the Staples Center. It's a more intimate setting for fights. However, it was hard to get around. It was hard to get around the Forum, but definitely the atmosphere inside, I actually preferred it to the Staples Center. Just because, you know what, everyone in there, you feel like you could actually hear the people talking at the other end of the arena. That was really cool.
That's pretty cool. I mean, I definitely had a good seat from as well, at home. But
you didn't have a line for the bathroom at your house, did you?
You got the commentary that we didn't get.
But we were last here for UFC 188.
Yep.
So we were, about to preview 189. Then a couple days later, we found out that Chris Weidman, the original contender for the championship, got hurt. Enter Michael Bisping. So we haven't even been able to talk about that. But here we are, a day later, Michael Bisping, brand new UFC middleweight championship. I mean, so much to talk about. I mean, personally, not a big fan of the guy at first, a while ago. I want to hear what your guys' thoughts first, as far as obviously maybe he wasn't the right person to fill in the slot, but he was mostly the only person to fill that slot.
I don't think you could say he's not the right person to fill in the slot, given what he did.
Yeah.
Well, at the time, before 199, we all thought, well, he only got it. I mean, everybody said he only got it because Jacare was hurt. Jacare couldn't fight.
Certainly
Jacare is still hurt. Surgery.
Yeah. So with that said, obviously maybe he was the right guy. And so what are your guys' thoughts? I mean, going back, like I said, 10 years ago, hated Bisping. Different, a little bit different now, but I want to hear what you guys think first.
When you have a finish like that, there's no way of questioning whether it was right or wrong. I mean, that was history in the making as well.
First British born.
First British born for the UFC. I mean, let's not forget Liam McGeary in Bellator. Yeah, I know everyone goes.
I think only the third Ultimate Fighter winner.
Fourth.
Fourth?
Well, it would be
First Griffin, Rashad. Oh yeah, Metzera.
And I guess you can count Carla Esparza.
Okay, that one's okay.
I mean,
4,
she
5,
won the
6.
title.
Okay.
Yeah, she's Ultimate Fighter winner. And
Okay, that counts.
You can say fifth.
But yeah, he was season 2 or 3.
Yeah, one of those.
When you have
I
like
think 3
because they're in like season 22 right now, so that's
just about
yeah.
Yeah.
You know, I think I was the only guy many years ago when he fought Dan Henderson to say I'm picking Bisping. And you know, when I look back at it, I've had the opportunity to meet him before and talk with him. He's one of the nicest guys that you'll actually meet in person, and I did remember saying to him, you know, you do a great job, man. Why do you think how can they hate on you? And he had the most just eloquent answers, like, you know, I understand that it just comes with my job. So when, you know, people say that, you know, I was like, he's been over and done with that for more years than people can imagine. And what I felt it was beautiful symmetry. Everyone likes to replay the knockout by Dan Henderson. You know, it's gonna live forever on highlight reels. But on the night when Henderson, I don't know if it came through, but he had the biggest ovation that night in the arena. Even with Dominic Cruz, Luke Rockhold before the fight, he got the hero's ovation before he even won. Bisping is the one now. He has his career-defining moment that kind of supersedes that. Yeah, that highlight's going to live on, but that's not going to be what, hey, that's all Michael Bisping was at the end of his career. And I really like that, especially on that night.
I've never had a problem with Bisping's dry. I think a lot of people can't get past that there's a cultural difference in the British dry humor.
It's mostly the cross-eyed thing.
Well, yeah, that's kind of strange, but you can't hold something physical against a person.
It was a joke.
I think this obviously is a high water mark for Bisping's career. It'll probably be the defining moment, even more so than beating Anderson. I think they'll probably go hand in hand as, you know, number 1 and number 2. And it's, God damn it, I got to start listening to my gut. I had a sneaking suspicion. There was no reason whatsoever rationally for me to think that Bisping was going to win. But after watching a couple of promo pieces and interviews a few days before, there was something in my gut that said, yeah, this might be the night for an upset.
See, with
Don't
me,
you know I didn't get on and do any online gambling or register anywhere, DraftKings.com.
And it's funny because like
code Buzz.
at first my hatred or dislike, not hatred, but dislike for Bisping came after the Matt Hamill fight. He was just so cocky during a fight that I was like, dude, you shouldn't have won that fight.
I thought he did.
That one is true.
I thought that was a robbery.
Yeah, and so I was like, dude, shut up, what a prick. You know what I mean? And then so honestly, my dislike for him lessened once my dislike for Josh Koscheck grew. I'm like, dude, that's a prick. That's a prick that unfairly gets compared to Michael Bisping. And, you know, obviously throughout the years, you know, especially as a panelist on the Fox, you know, on the Fox panel, I'm like, all right, cool, you know, he does offer a lot of good insight, and kind of I grew to like him a little bit more, you know, like this, but just kind of like seeing him get the title shot, I'm like, all right, good. So at least he's going to get it because he's finally going to shut up about it. You know, he's been bitching about for years about, oh, where's my title shot? And I'm always like, well, beat someone then. Obviously, he beat Anderson Silva, so, you know, kudos to him, and rightfully so. I think he should have been in line at some point. Obviously, Chris Weidman, you know, who knows who would have been after that.
It sounds like you don't think that he was necessarily ready for it. He didn't deserve it, despite the 10 years of, granted, trial and error at the very top, you know, when his title shots were on the line.
I didn't think he deserved it before Anderson Silva, because all I ever said about Bisping was beat a former champion, or at least a guy who's fought for the belt. That's all I asked of him. But every time he did that, or every time he fought somebody, he always lost. He lost against Son and Rashad. You know, the list goes on and on. You know,
Vitor.
a lot of those guys, and I'm like, dude, just beat, or Rockhold previously, beat one of those guys, and I'm good. He beat Silva, so I was like, you know what? To be fair, yeah, maybe he should be one of the guys considered for a title shot. So he got one. I'm like, cool. Now he's gonna shut up. But now it's like, especially after yesterday, and I said it. This is the way I said it. He did things the right way. You know what I mean? He's never been caught with anything. He's never been. He just plays the fight game. Let's be real. And he plays the fight game, as you said. Very humble, very nice. Like, obviously, like I said, he does offer a lot of good insight on the show. Kind of says a lot about him. And so after he saw it, I'm like, yeah, rightfully so. I'm very, very happy for him, to be honest with you. I'm happy that he was humble at the end. You know, we'll get into a little bit more about the bad blood with Rockhold. I thought Rockhold came off really bad during the fight and post fight as well.
Yes, I saw those clips.
Actually, yeah. What did you guys think about that? I mean, do you think?
Well, I mean, in the same token that we're talking about Bisping playing a certain character and knowing when to be on. How do we know that that's not Rockhold doing the exact same thing? He lost, and a lot of the times we see fighters be gracious in defeat, and that's great to know that they have that humility. But at the same time, doesn't it also keep the conversation going? Yes, it does, clearly. When you've got a guy who's bitter and pissed off about it, and God knows he probably surely is, you know, in his true, genuine self, but he's keeping the conversation going, and God knows, like, that beef, the heat between them, of course we're going to see a third match. Now it's 1-1, no reason not to book a third match.
When?
I don't want it immediately.
Yeah,
I gotta
agreed.
say that. You know, I think Rockhold, I wouldn't mind seeing him, if the timetable is right, Romero maybe. And then Bisping, you know what? He's the champ now. Fight the next guy in line with Jacare. Let's see where they're at after that. But definitely, you know, you don't want to see that kind of poor sportsmanship, at least right after the fight. Because there comes a time it's like, you know what? The fight's over. Like, period. The fight's over. You know, hey, it's done. They don't, like, even Uriah Faber, Dominic Cruz. It's over, man. You know, they're not about to go jawing at it in the cage anymore. It's over. So that kind of, I mean, it turned me off a bit from Rockhold, but then again, you know, I'll give Jay that credit. It sells that fight.
I think we're seeing a lot of these things happen coincidentally when the camera's on.
Yes, that is true. You know, and mind you, Rockhold, similar to Verdum, he is very pissed off with himself. He was overextending on that jab. He alluded to that after the fight, and you got to give Bisping the credit, though. 2 weeks' notice, he found his mark with his punches. That is not cheating. That is just good fighting.
Like I said, I think he did things. I mean, his path toward that championship, I mean, probably maybe the most difficult. I mean, how many fights has he been in since
I think
he started 26
he's got like
or something like that?
Yes, the 26 fight. He has like something, most wins, something in the middleweight division.
Something like that, yeah.
Not necessarily that he's been on the longest win streak, but he's just been there that long that he's won that many.
I want to give it up here right quick. We didn't introduce the guys in the chat room. We got a little bit of stuff going on here. Of course, Chief Cornerman Joe Boza is here. Also, Chris Mingy. I hope I didn't butcher your name there. Sorry, bro. And
we have J10 in the chat as well.
J10 is in the chat room. J10, but not J10 716.
Okay.
Not 716, so there's a difference there. Jerry Law also has got a good one. Quote, Luke, I am your father, end quote.
That was on Instagram, too. It was really funny.
All right, yeah. I wouldn't be surprised if...
onto Vader.
Okay, there you go. Joe Bose was switching topics here slightly. He says, Dominic needed the judges for a 15th time. He ain't done with Team Alpha Male. Number 7, Cody Garbrandt, is claiming for a fight with number 4, Brian Caraway, at UFC 203. And he answers your question. He tied Bisping, that is. He tied GSP for most wins in the UFC with 19. He is 15-6 as a middleweight.
There you go.
And I don't. I got the name right. Thank you, Chris. Good stuff. I don't think so. Garbrandt and Brian Caraway, next guy's up for a shot at the featherweight belt. I don't think that match is going to happen right away. Caraway, I had read Caraway had denied Cody. Caraway is clamoring for a title shot himself directly.
Yeah, he's crazy.
Yeah, he's just not right there in line. Sorry.
But I mean, I think
he's number 4.
Yeah,
There's something to be said for that.
Well, TJ against Sun Sao.
Yeah, he's got to get by those guys. Didn't TJ beat Caraway? Or no, Sun Sao beat him.
But I mean, you got Brian Caraway right below a Sun Sao. Yeah. It's TJ, Uriah Faber, Rafael Sun Sao, and Brian Caraway. So there's something to be said. If Caraway and the Sun Sao both end up being unable to fight in the next cycle after that, then you're going to be looking at Caraway.
So I think the Sun Sao's getting by TJ?
I don't know. It's right now my gut says TJ.
I feel like the fight with Cruz aside, Cruz is just a very special fighter. We saw that last night. He was just dominant against Uriah Faber after that second round. Mm-hmm. Uriah wasn't the same after getting dropped.
Even the first round.
The first round, he
I
did
scored
win.
it for Faber.
I did too at first, but watching it on the replay, I can see very easily how.
Real
Cruz-
quick, just going off the next fight. I say Luke Rockhold fights Anderson Silva, but yeah,
that'd
Dominic
be fun.
Cruz versus Uriah Faber. Like you said, I did score it for the first. I mean, I only watched it once. I thought that was one of those rounds that could have gone either way. Obviously, one of the judges did score it for 49-46. I find it hard to believe anyone scoring Uriah in favor for the last 4 rounds.
Yeah,
No,
I
it
agree.
would have been the first round.
Clearly would've been the
I'm
first.
guessing.
It was a shutout the last 4. I actually give Cruz the first just because even when Faber did have a good position, like when he got the big takedown where he got him in the air, Cruz flipped him and got top position immediately. So,
Yeah.
as many points as Faber would have got on that move, Cruz just one-upped him, and he was just on his game that night. More dominant than their second fight, which was very close, and I actually thought that's how this one was going to go. But Cruz just proved, even after that long layoff, that he's still at a very high level. And Faber, I hate to say it, but, he hasn't gotten younger since the second fight with Cruz, and I think we kind of just saw a little bit not as fast as he might have been years prior in that kind of fight.
Well, the match needed to happen, though, to close out a trilogy that they've been working on for almost 10 years now.
Or even this third fight over 4 years.
Right,
This fight
yeah.
was supposed to happen, I believe, July 2012.
Right.
Before Cruz. He was,
So even if this was the result that it was, and I think very few people predicted otherwise, it had to happen, and Uriah didn't have a performance that says he's done. He can still fight. I think he's still got a lot of fights left in him.
It just
if
depends what he
wanted
wants to do.
Yeah. But it is ironic and interesting that he and also Dan Henderson spoke about at least announcing, I'm going to take it. I'm going to take some time off and reconsider. That may be the last match we saw of Dan Henderson. Probably not of Uriah, but
Yeah, we'll talk about
he
that
set
in
it
a
up as a
second.
possibility.
But I do think that this was probably Dominic Cruz's finest hour. I mean, the guy looked nearly flawless. I mean, obviously he's one of those. I think he's statistically one of the least hit. One of the least hit fighters ever.
Yes.
Which one I saw a meme that said CM Punk under that said, nope. But yeah,
that is very true.
Dominic Cruz, I mean, his style is just so unique. Like, you see him, one stance, another stance, another stance. Like, oh my god, no wonder this guy isn't hard to hit.
A little like Ali in that way too.
Exactly.
You gotta give that credit tonight.
I mean, probably one of the greatest footwork in MMA, Dominic Cruz.
Yeah.
But I mean, you had somebody like Faber, he was all over the place. Well, that's his style.
Yeah.
It's not about beating. It's not about being. I mean, it's about being the better fighter. But how? By over capitalizing on the other person's style or their mistakes or whatnot. I didn't see really any mistakes in Dominic Cruz's game.
Yeah, and I gotta give him credit. When you see a guy like Dominic Cruz, he obviously has the length and reach advantage. Just how often that he really allowed Faber to go in and then counter. You got to think Faber, he's got to get in really close to Faber when he's countering punches rather than picking him apart from the outside. And the fact that he was able to do that so consistently throughout the 5 rounds, I think you got to give him... People don't realize just how brilliant that is. It's not a guy keeping Faber at the end of the jab. He was letting Faber throw those punches and then really capitalizing when Faber's feet were planted. That's just brilliant MMA. And I think you really got to be a big fan of the sport, watch it a long time to realize those kind of nuances.
Yeah, he's always been known for his in and out, fast footwork, and I'll say sneaky style.
Yeah.
And it's we're seeing another heyday. Those 4 years off, or moderate 4 years off, aside from the 2 matches, could have really been a great boon for the longevity of his career, because he is now sharper, smarter in terms of being a fighter, and has more is farther down the line age wise. So he's not going to age as harshly or as fast as many other fighters who would have had a longer, many more matches during those 4 years. Joe Boza puts out a good, interesting question here. Does Uriah need to go up to 145 full time?
I'd say no. We saw against Frankie Edgar, even a smaller featherweight, that he didn't really have that size advantage. The fact is, compared to when Uriah was the 145 champion WEC, the guys have just gotten a lot bigger at featherweight when you look at guys like Aldo, McGregor. So I'd say next for Faber, if he does choose to stay around. I mean, I still wouldn't mind seeing TJ in Faber if he loses to a Sun Sao. That's still a fun storyline. If not, you got a new guy, Aljamain Sterling, young guy, just lost to Caraway. If we're looking at building Faber or building Sterling since then, but I wouldn't say a move to 45. I think he just gives up even more advantages at that weight.
I don't think that. Yeah, I agree. I don't think that the size is the issue. Now he did start out his career at 45 and fought and was King of the Cage champion for quite a while before he got signed to
Obviously,
the UFC
WEC
via WEC via the WFA. I might add, pat behind my back, but. I think that he's comfortable enough where he is, or so it seems. You know, it wasn't that he had a shit performance last night. It's that Dominic Cruz is Dominic Cruz.
It's true,
and you know that's a thing. And he's had pretty good fare against guys at 35 leading up to this match. You know.
I mean, something also to kind of consider to me, maybe who's next in line for Dominic Cruz, either TJ versus a Sun Sao, maybe number one contendership. I know TJ lost in a split decision, so that fight could have really gone either way. I think I scored it for Dominic Cruz anyways on his last fight. But I mean, I know we didn't cover it last week, but Cody Garbrandt, I was super impressed by just how he completely, not accidentally rocked, not he got a lucky shot in, he dominated Thomas Almeida. I was not surprised.
That boy.
I was very surprised on just how great Cody Garbrandt looked.
That's not the Thomas Almeida that we've been seeing leading up this whole time. We've got a new guy.
It can be a combination of maybe Almeida not being the guy, but maybe Cody is really that good. I mean, the guy wasn't even ranked before his fight last week. Now it's one of those guys where like, hey, he's a lot better than just kind of slipping in.
And also, being in the arena, anytime they showed Cody, he was also doing signings outside. He had a big following. This isn't just a random guy like, oh, we recognize him from last week. No, the fans are really getting behind Garbrandt. And, he has that little bit of his personal life has kind of gotten in the way with Paige Van Zandt. That's probably one of the storylines about him that superseded, his rise into the top 10. But, he's a guy that a lot of fans are recognizing, and I wouldn't be surprised that hype now, that he's won a main event, does escalate into a title shot maybe next year.
We'll see. Should be interesting to follow.
Joe Boza says, Don needs the judges. Uriah needed the finish.
Somebody who has been equally as impressive is Max Holloway. He fought Ricardo Lamas yesterday, and Ricardo Lamas is no joke. That's a guy who's obviously, had his time. Obviously did have a title shot against Jose Aldo. Yeah. But Max Holloway, man. I mean, obviously his last loss was against Conor McGregor. I want to say 4 years ago, and I feel like whatever holes he had, not only did he fill those holes, but he's also created holes for his opponents. That guy just looks flawless to me. Do you guys see the same thing that I see?
Yeah, he was fine in the match. I mean, there was no question about the score, and he had Ricardo's number. Ricardo was a guy that they kind of had a lot of promise only a few years ago, but I think we may have seen his peak. I think he's at a point where he needs to reinvent himself in terms of fight technique and style. But Max Holloway is absolutely the real deal. Tough kid, takes shots and gives them.
Like you said, with McGregor, you gotta give McGregor a bit of credit too. There's no guarantee, not saying that this is our next fight, but there's no guarantee that, this version of Max could necessarily, keep up with McGregor. That's just the kind of guy he is. But definitely he's grown so much as a fighter. Take into account, he was still maybe the youngest guy in the UFC roster when he fought Conor. So I think you almost gotta, I don't want to say toss it out, but you gotta understand it's a completely new fighter. I wouldn't mind seeing him maybe against a Chad Mendes. Maybe to see what's next. I think that would be a good test.
Honestly, I think he's ready. I think he should face the winner. First off, I still think, we'll talk about it a little bit later, but I still think Conor McGregor is never going to fight at 145 ever again.
You're probably right.
But I gotta say, we've seen, Aldo and Edgar, they're probably the primary victims of the logjam of McGregor not being there.
I think Holloway's next. He should be next.
Officially, Holloway now, this is another guy, if he's being so affected. Like, now he's got to wait possibly, what, how long? Even if he were the next guy in line, because obviously Aldo Edgar got to get that out of the way. Possibly get it out of the way with Conor. Then it would be Max's turn. That's just too much drama. You know, the division has to move on, not just with an interim title anymore, in my opinion.
I don't think you're, George is right. I don't think you're going to see McGregor back. I think the interim title is just simply going to be announced as the UFC featherweight title. And that champion, then you put in Holloway. I mean, that takes McGregor out of the equation altogether. And so, you know, Holloway, I wouldn't be surprised if he gets a title shot by the end of the year.
No,
or the fall.
And I think, you know, what I worry about then, you know, this is obviously getting into more the politics of MMA, but does it water down the value of 145? Because you feel like the guys might be competing for second place because it's like, well, they didn't fight McGregor. So
it does hurt it. That's the problem.
Yeah.
It's going to happen anyway.
That's maybe a conversation for our UFC 200 show, but it is something you got to address that, you know, Aldo, Edgar, or Max deserves the credit of being undisputed, you know, if they're the ones still fighting at this weight class against the top guys.
I will say this. If there's anybody out there who is not a Max Holloway fan, especially, I want to hear what your guys' thoughts coming from the live perspective, especially those last 10 seconds of that fight.
They went batshit for
where
that.
Clearly Holloway was winning the fight no matter what. But he said, you know what? Last 10 seconds, let's just go all out.
Yeah.
Balls to the wall. And I was like, oh my God, like this is amazing. How did maybe you guys saw, maybe I don't know if you guys saw this fight, but I thought that was fight of the night.
The first one ended up winning. Was it Marco Polo Reyes and Dong Hyun Kim? Maestro, not Stun Gun. Maestro. Everyone is mixing that up, including Sherdog and the UFC website roster.
He's Korean and the exact same name.
Yeah, same name, and I believe same. Also welterweight.
No, I think that was
Stun
lightweight.
Gun. Stun Gun's welterweight, but Dong Hyun Kim Maestro came in as a welterweight. Now he's fighting lightweight. But that ended up winning fight of the night, and that one absolutely deserved it. But yes, to your point, this one was the crowd popped crazy for this match, and especially those last 10 seconds.
Oh my God!
Yeah, Max Holloway earned a lot of fans in the Southland here.
That's a fight that I'll be watching.
I got held up by the Cody Garbrandt line. You know, they're trying to get in the arena, so I missed the first fight. I did watch it back. It was fun, but I think well-deserved fight of the night when you watch it back. But that's, you know, Max Holloway, Ricardo Lamas, that would have won fight of the night any other night.
That's true.
Yeah, it was just that kind of situation.
And I'm sure we've seen it many, many times before. I'm sure Dana White, it's not just about the actual performance itself. It's about, you know, maybe an extra kickback. And we've seen Dana White plenty of times give more money than to guys who perform.
Oh, yeah, they got a nice extra check.
But another thing that I'm sure, and you guys already said it, that people went crazy for was the finish of the next fight. Going back to middleweight, I mean, both of the guys, I mean, obviously Dan Henderson and Hector Lombard have fought in multiple divisions. Dan Henderson even going up to heavyweight to defeat Fedor Emelianenko. But this was a fight, quite possibly, probably my contender, knockout of the year.
Yeah.
It was that great. And I want to hear what you guys thought, right? I mean, you guys were there. You know, I was watching it live, and I was, you know, being where I was able to replay it over and over again. I mean, what did you guys think?
It was a standing ovation for Dan Henderson from the moment his music started playing until even when he was getting knocked down and out, people were still just trying to, you know, cheer him on to a victory, and it freaking worked. You know, that place... They had a louder ovation, like I said earlier, for Dan Henderson than they did any other person on the card, even more than two current UFC champions and a fan favorite like Uriah Faber. They cared more about Dan Henderson. The fans knew that this could be it, and they treated it like that. It was nuts in there during the whole fight, even when he was losing.
I'm sure there's a good amount, for, you know, in his camp, you know, not just in his fight camp, but born in Downey. Then was he live in Temecula? Went to Cal State Fullerton. I'm sure there were a lot of Dan Henderson direct supporters from his side. But yeah, I mean, talk about that knockout.
There were two moments, I think. Yeah, two. In this,
well, he almost got knocked out himself.
I don't stand up in matches at all. Although this year, strangely enough, it's become a thing. I stood up when Ronda got knocked out. I stood up when Nate choked out Conor. And this was the other night of the 4 times this year that I can think that I've stood up. Henderson knocking out Hector in that way was mind blowing. Came out of nowhere. Hector catching the kick, and then to be able to knock somebody out with a short backhand elbow, and the way that Hector dropped the match was, pardon the pun, guys, jaw dropping, literally and figuratively. But yes, that first round was, for as exciting as the finish was, that first round had people going batshit as well. It was back and forth. Yes, Henderson almost got dropped and came close to getting finished a couple of times. It was really close. I wouldn't be surprised. It wasn't a dominant performance all the way through by Hector, but given how much Hector was taking it to Dan Henderson, I wouldn't be surprised if some judges scored it a 10-8. I mean, he was really
that. He dropped him twice in the first.
He was close to finishing Henderson so many times, and it's a testament to what Henderson can do and how tough he is that at that age he can take shots by a very healthy, not sucked in Hector Lombard. I mean, the guy Hector fought a lot at 170, back up to 185, where he's just pardon me, but a brick shithouse. You cannot knock that guy down, except unless you got a short elbow, backhand elbow. Pardon me, of course.
What's weird about Hector, he's really short for middleweight, but then he's so built that it drains him too much to go to welterweight. But to his credit, when I'm watching that fight with Henderson, when was the last time you ever saw Henderson land a head kick on anybody?
With that too, yeah.
To set obviously the elbow, was, we talk about 12-6 in MMA because of the rules, but that was a 3-9 essentially. You don't see too many of those, but Henderson just pulled out, I guess, something we've never seen out of him for possibly his last fight. That was pretty amazing. That's what I thought. It's like, you're telling me he picks now to pull that out of his arsenal? That could have won him a few more fights lately, but I was just impressed that, he came back to win it. I had Hector going into this fight. I thought Henderson has been a little more suspect to the big shot, but he got the job done. And you know what? I want to see, I know we got a lot to talk about, but I got to say, I want that to be the end. I don't think he's got anything else to prove. I don't see him getting back into the top 10. Even so, what for at this point? He's not getting that title shot past the Jacare. I say Hollywood ending, in LA for Dan Henderson after that one.
Do you agree, Jay?
It'd be nice. The right way to go out. I mean, it's so rare that you see people go out on that kind of high. Yeah.
It's like Kobe dropping 60.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be mad at that.
And if he did retire, then what a career he's had. I mean, this guy has been around for a while. I think he's 45 years old. Yeah. Like I mentioned before, victories over Fedor Emelianenko, match of the decade, fight of this decade against
Vanderlei Silva.
Yeah. And Pride.
Yeah.
And of course, just the way he ended it here. I mean, double champion in Pride. I mean, goodness gracious. I mean, if anybody deserves a Hall of Fame, it's this guy.
Yeah.
I mean, especially, I think Stan Alvey said it a few weeks ago, where, in his opinion, he says that it's hard to pick, a pound-for-pound fighter who hasn't fought in multiple divisions. With that said, Dan Henderson, probably one of the best pound-for-pound fighters of all time.
Mm-hmm.
No, it's true.
It's hard. Welterweight champion, which is middleweight, and light heavyweight. Well, what we would think of as light heavyweight Grand Prix champion, but that was middleweight when he beat Anderson Silva.
And I hope at some point he gets into the Hall of Fame, which, speaking of which, congrats to Don Fry, former AfterBuzz TV guest about 2 years ago. So kudos to him for getting inducted into the UFC Hall of Fame.
And shout out, while we're talking about legends, I don't know who this is, but Bruce Lee has joined the chat room here on the YouTube page. 5 hits to the chin on anyone, it's over. Rockhold thought he was all lowering
his... He was Ali.
I thought he was Ali lowering his guard. Bruce, I'm glad that you're watching MMA these days. Fantastic. I hope the reception is good wherever you are.
I mean, we're going to try to wrap up the UFC 99 because we have a couple more things to talk about. But Poirier Green, I'm a big Poirier fan.
Yeah.
Obviously,
dominant performance.
I think it was more Bobby Green just being a cocky prick. But I'm not going to complain against Poirier winning.
You got, if you are lucky enough to survive to survive the first flurry, you do not do that anymore. You go to Plan B. You go to Plan B. It didn't work. You didn't throw him off. You got hurt. you don't keep going.
Now, Jay, real quick. I know you like to do this usually. If you want to just run down the rest of the card, and then we're going to get into some news that we've heard in the last 24 hours.
Yeah, let's talk about that.
Could do a whole show about that.
Coming from the beginning of the show here, again, Marco Polo Reyes and Dong Hyun Kim Maestro, not Stun Gun. Polo Reyes ends the match in the third round with a KO. That one got Fight of the Night honors and really is worth going out of your way to check in on UFC Fight Pass. At middleweight, Kevin Casey and Elvis Mustapchik. A split draw, which actually was... it was announced as a majority draw, but it was a split draw, which I didn't agree with. I thought Kevin Casey did enough in the first and second rounds. Light heavyweight, Luis Enrique da Silva defeated Jonathan Wilson by TKO in the second. Sean Strickland at welterweight, he was the main event for the Fight Pass portion, defeated Tom Breeze by split decision. In the Fox 1 card, the prelims, Alex Caceres, former opponent for Uriah Faber. It was a featherweight match. He defeated Cole Miller by unanimous decision.
Stepped in for BJ Penn.
Yeah, really good
performance for a guy like that.
In BJ Penn versus Dennis Seaver, we got Alex Caceres versus Cole Miller. Although, again, to Alex's credit, really great performance against a very tough guy. Women's strawweight, Jessica Andrade defeated Jessica Penne by TKO in the second. Pretty much like standing TKO with punches to the face. At lightweight, Benil Dariush, just from down the street, King's MMA, defeated James Vick with a KO in the first. Brian Ortega then followed up with a KO of his own in the third round against Clay Guida. Another fantastic back-and-forth battle. That was great.
AfterBuzz alumni, Brian Ortega.
That's right, yep. Oh, nice. We had three AfterBuzz alumni come out with finishes. Come to think of it, this Brian Ortega, Tommy Aaron, and Christos Giagos.
So you hear that, fighters? Come to AfterBuzz TV. You get a knockout in your favor in the future.
Yes. Alan Germain, get back to me.
in the middle of the UFC 189, I'm sure it got played in the.
Oh yeah.
And so we see this commercial for UFC 200, and we're all thinking, oh, okay, cool,
nice
obviously they, John Jones, Cormier, whatever, they promote it.
Hey, wait, Ariel Helwani on MMA Fighting is saying that Brock Lesnar is going to come back for UFC 200. Wait, what? Well, I'm sorry, did I cut you off?
So you see the graphic.
Blew the surprise.
You see the graphic of. I'm sure anybody's watching or listening. By the way, thank you for listening. Thank you for watching YouTube.
Thank you.
iTunes, SoundCloud. I'm not done yet, so don't write me up. So you see the graphic for the card of the UFC 200, and then you hear the. What do you say? Can you hear me now? Mm-hmm. And you see Brock Lesnar.
Right.
Live. How was that?
You know what? It was definitely interesting because you had a lot of people like it shocked everybody. Mm-hmm. Nobody in the house knew. At least in my section, I know. I guess Jay's section was bored because they were watching their phone for Ariel Helwani. By the way, free Ariel Helwani. But honestly, everyone in my section, we were just like, "Whoa!" We were shocked, and that was a crazy surprise.
I don't know what I was looking at the time. I remember watching the commercial and Bruce Buffer looking right at the camera. It's a nice close-up of "It's time!" And I think I probably looked at my friend that I was with at the time and just continued the conversation and didn't hear this, "Hear me now? Hear me now?" I was like, what, somebody on the phone or something? I missed it completely. Had no idea. And then two other friends I was sitting with, they said, "Was that Brock Lesnar in the video?" I was like, "No, of course not. What the hell was Brock Lesnar?" "No, that was 100% Brock Lesnar." By that point, I didn't care. I was like, okay, whatever. And then come to find out all of this afterwards, that Brock Lesnar is coming back for UFC 200, hopefully, with an opponent. I mean, it really still...
I think they said they were going to announce something tomorrow. I think they said they were going to announce something tomorrow on
He's going to be on Sports Center.
Okay, sure. There's probably somebody lined up.
I mean, now this is a big deal because just about over a year ago, obviously the big Brock Lesnar going into WrestleMania, he's going to be a free agent. Choosing between WWE and UFC, stuck with WWE, and you don't really see current contracted WWE talent, compete in real sports.
That makes me think it's gonna be a one-off, and to be honest,
WWE says it is.
They announced it as a one-off.
It should be that way
because he's even still getting what's the word I'm looking for, promoted for their SummerSlam event in August.
Yeah, like I said, it should be. He should not be getting anyone in the top 15. I hope they give him someone.
I think they're gonna give him Mark Hunt.
Oh,
That's
what
a
did
dumb idea.
What did Brock
That's the
Lesnar
rumor.
do to
No.
you, George?
Chris Mingy is asking, would anyone want to see Brock versus Mir at 200?
No.
I'll pass on that.
Absolutely
the only
not.
reason why I think it'd be neat, but aside from that, no. Because, 100 and 200 having the same opponents.
Right.
But other than that, no.
Sadly, we gotta get things out of the way. Like like Diaz McGregor happening. I'm ready to just get that out of the way.
I'm over that one, too. I mean, when they announced it, they announced that, too, for UFC 202 on August 20th. I'm like,
Let's get it out of the way already. I hope it's a fun show, but you know what?
Here's what I find fascinating.
and still at welterweight.
Here's what I find fascinating is that the story about Ariel Helwani, Esther Lynn, and Casey Layden, his photographer and videographers for MMA fighting, getting booted out of the arena, presumably for breaking the news about Brock Lesnar.
That's only interesting if AfterBuzz TV can replace them.
No, I'll tell you what. It's hitting on the Washington Post, the New York Times, the AP. It's getting covered. It's getting national coverage, and it's actually, I think, overshadowing a lot of the big headlines that came out. To me, that's a bigger story than Brock Lesnar. I really don't care about Brock Lesnar coming back for 200. Great, whatever. But the fact that we are seeing this same problem, this trend with the UFC, for lack of a better phrase, being petty about what gets reported on the timeline that they want. As I understand it, the problem was that the Ariel had broken news first and had not contacted the UFC, had not reached out to them for comment. Now, news is news, and if you've got a news story and you've got multiple sources, you can report it. There's nothing saying that you shouldn't report it. And clearly it was factually correct because the UFC announced it. So it's not like he was throwing up a false headline. The fact that this is getting the news that it is getting, that's a bigger story to me, and unfortunately a blight on UFC PR and how they're handling the media that covers them.
That just means there's 3 slots for us at UFC 200.
And I'm sure that's really going to happen.
You never know. I did see Dana White on Friday at the RFA show. And he did shake my hand.
That's nice.
Was it nice?
Yeah, it was.
It seems like it would be.
It was. He kind of gave me like a little, what's up, dog? And then,
Yes,
that really did happen, by the way. I'm not even joking. That really did happen.
Well, I think you're that close to Sean Shelby's
For
job,
next
then.
week, he once offered me a job at the Fox Sports 1 desk one night, but he never came through on it.
Really?
There's video evidence.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's very cool.
So tune in next week to AfterBuzz TV. Nah.
Well, either way,
Yeah.
tune in next time to AfterBuzz TV. But in the meantime, where can people find you?
Nothing has changed in the past 58 or so minutes. I'm still at JTAN716 all over the internet.
As always, Double G on TV.
I am George Hermoza. You can follow me at G Hermoza, GHERMOZA, YouTube, Twitter, Twitch. I do have a YouTube account, but I don't post video up. But Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Twitch, Snapchat.
Shout out to Bruce Lee, Chris Mingy, and our chief quarterman Joe Boza in the chat room. Thanks, guys.
We will be back in a few weeks to cover the next UFC Fight Night. Stephen Thompson versus Rory McDonald. We're going to try to go for a guest, but I know if not, I know you're still going to interview Josh Gross, who, coincidentally has a book out coming out.
Really going to be a fascinating talk.
Muhammad Ali versus Antonio Inoki, going all about that, and it really delves into pre-MMA, pre-UFC. So that's a pretty cool thing. But in the meantime, we'll catch you guys later.
From executive producers Maria Menounos, Kevin Undergaro, Phil Svitek, and the entire AfterBuzz TV staff, we would like to thank you for listening to the AfterBuzz TV network. To watch or listen to other after shows and post comments or questions, be sure to visit AfterBuzzTV.com. I'm Sir Richard Wentworth, and this has been a presentation of AfterBuzz TV.
Buzz you later. The views expressed herein are those of the hosts only and do not necessarily reflect the views of AfterBuzz TV or its owners or principals.